I'll be honest with you, after season 2 I was done with Squid Game. Almost nothing worked for me. The pacing was off, the emotional stakes felt forced, and the new characters didn't hold a candle to season 1's cast. The only thing that came close to the brilliance of the original was the mingle game. That one game had tension, psychology, and consequences. But one good game in a sea of disappointment just wasn't enough. So when season 3 dropped, I didn't rush to watch it. I almost didn't bother at all. But curiosity got the better of me, and somehow I ended up binging the entire thing in one sitting. And I've got a lot to say. Because season 3? It brought Squid Game back to life, and then just as quickly reminded me that Netflix still doesn't get its own show. This is my journey through Squid Game season 3, from doubt to disbelief to heartbreak and maybe a little bit of rage. Because what the fuck was that ending, Netflix? When I finally hit play on episode 1, I wasn't excited. I was bracing myself. Season 2 left such a bitter taste that I half expected more bloated storytelling, another forgettable antagonist, and characters I'd struggled to care about. But right away, I could tell season 3 was taking a different approach. Episode 1 doesn't try to wow you with some flashy new game or big twist. Instead, it slows down. It leans into grief, guilt, and exhaustion. Gi-hun is a shell of himself, drowning in the weight of the rebellion that failed in season 2. Most of his people are dead and he blames himself. It's a quiet, almost mournful episode. Nothing much really happens in terms of action. But it is doing something important. It's reintroducing us to the world of Squid Game and the people still trapped in it. And after months away from this story, thankfully not years, that reconnection matters. Because by the time the new game finally begins, hide and seek, with a disturbing twist, I realized I was all the way back in. And nervous. And tense. And suddenly, I cared again. Now, I don't usually say things like this lightly, but nearly everyone I've heard talking about this season, granted it dropped hours ago, seems to agree. Episode 2 is the best of the entire season. Some people are even calling it the best episode in the whole series. I'm not quite ready to go that far, but it's easily the best since season 1's peak. And by far the strongest thing season 2 and 3 have given us. So let's talk about it. The first game of the season is hide and seek. Everyone gets split into 2 roles, hiders and seekers. Sounds simple enough. But this is Squid Game, so of course there's a twist. The seekers are given knives. And in order to survive, they have to kill at least one person. It's simple. It's horrifying. And it's brilliant. What makes this game work, unlike so much of what Season 2 tried to do, is that it isn't bogged down in overly complex mechanics. It's primal. Hide. Hunt. Kill. The tension is unbearable, and more importantly, it gives the characters room to breathe. Or more accurately, to break. Because everybody dies. And I mean brutal, character-defining deaths. So let's go through the ones that hit hardest. Not all of them, just the ones that mattered. The ones I actually cared about. Let's start with Kang Ha-neul's character, Kang Dae-ho. If you watched Season 2, especially the finale, you'll remember him. Dae-ho was supposed to bring ammo back to Gi-hun during the big rebellion scene, but he froze. He just sat there while everyone else got gunned down. So now in Season 3, Gi-hun is depressed, but also pissed the F off when he finds out Dae-ho choked. He blames him for all the deaths during that failed rebellion. And before the hide and seek game even starts, Gi-hun is staring daggers at this guy. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. He just watches Dae-ho waiting. So when the game begins and Gi-hun ends up as a seeker and Dae-ho as a hider, it's like fate handed him a loaded gun. Gi-hun spends the entire game hunting him down like a man possessed. And when he finally finds him, they fight. Dae-ho tries to explain he lied about being a Marine. He just wanted to join Gi-hun's group because, well, the guy seems like a survivor. Maybe even has some serious plot armor, okay, I'm kidding kind of. But Dae-ho flips it around and blames Gi-hun for the rebellion deaths. Because it was Gi-hun who came up with that plan to go full cowboy and shoot it out with the guards. And Gi-hun snaps. He strangles Dae-ho to death. At first, I thought this was Gi-hun's first kill. But then I remembered he did kill guards during the rebellion. Still, this one hits. Because emotionally? Gi-hun's already dead inside. He was ready to die alongside the people he lost. So after killing Dae-ho, he actually turns the knife on himself. He's blaming himself. Because deep down, even he knows that rebellion plan was stupid. Quick shout out to both actors here. Kang Ha-neul plays Dae-ho's desperation to perfection. You can feel the panic in every breath. And Lee Young-jae nails this broken version of Gi-hun. There is nothing behind those eyes. He's just a ghost. Okay, confession time. I didn't care about this mother and son duo in Season 2. Yeah, I know. At first, they seemed interesting, but Season 2 was such a snooze fest that I stopped investing in most of the characters. But, plot twist. I had to rewatch Season 2 recently because my friend forced me to sit through it again before Season 3. And on that second viewing, something changed. I got them. The quiet tension. The weird codependency. It all clicked. So when this happened in the hide and seek game, yeah, it hurt. The game starts and they end up on opposite sides. The son becomes a hider. The mom is a seeker. But they switch sides. Because the son, player 007, tells her I can kill. He's convinced he can handle it. So the mom pairs off with Cho Hyun-ju, player 120, don't worry, we're getting to her, and Kim Junhui, aka player 222. Now here's the twist. Junhui just gave birth to a baby girl. Yeah, that happened. And then completely out of nowhere, player 007 finds them and decides he's going to kill Junhui. It's jarring. I get that he's desperate to survive, but it's so abrupt it almost feels out of character. Still, this is Squid Game. People snap. So he raises the knife and his mother steps in. She tells him, kill me instead. But he can't, because that's his mom. And even in this twisted nightmare, some lines are still hard to cross. So he hesitates and steps toward Junhui with the knife. That's when she does it. His mother stabs him in the back with a hairpin. Literally, not metaphorically. She kills him to protect the others. And it destroys her. Because of course it does. This was her son. The person she spent the entire game protecting. And now she's the one who ended him. The guards finish him off when the timer ends because he failed to kill anyone. And that right there? That's what Squid Game is actually about. It's not the gore. It's not the gore. Leave that to garbage that is the 8 show. Squid Game is about impossible choices. It's about characters being put in situations where every option is wrong. And the only thing that defines them is what they choose to do anyway. What's right and wrong becomes blurry when survival's on the line. And the tragedy is that sometimes the cost of doing the right thing is everything. And of course, I can't talk about the saddest deaths this season without mentioning Cho Hyun-ju, player 120. Truthfully, I thought she was going to make it to the end. She had finalist energy. Season 2 already proved she was a total badass, phenomenal with a gun, quick thinker, solid under pressure. She felt like someone who couldn't die, at least not this early. But Squid Game doesn't care what you think. In the hide and seek game, she's a hider, paired with the mother and player 222, the one who literally gave birth mid-game. And Hyun-ju, she's the backbone of that group. They get attacked multiple times, but she fights like hell. She kills 2 seekers. She protects not just the mom and the newborn baby, but the emotional core of what humanity should look like in this nightmare. She even finds a possible exit, a place to hide and survive the game. She earned her spot in the next round. She did everything right. And then she dies. Yim Si-won's character, Lee Myeong-gi, player 333, just straight up stabs her. It's quick, brutal, senseless, and it hurts. Because of all the characters this season, she was one of the few people who still had something like a moral compass. She was trying to protect others, not just herself. And that's rare in a place like this. So when she went down, I just sat there, silent, shocked. I was rooting for her. I thought she'd make it. I wanted her to. But this is Squid Game, and survival rarely favors the kind or the good. And just like that, the one person who felt like she deserved to win was gone. I wasn't even planning on talking about the next game, to be honest. Not because it's bad, it's actually a pretty fucking good game. But by this point, most of the characters I cared about were already dead. And the ones who were left felt like they were locked in for the finale. So, the game is simple in concept. It's rope jumping, but make it Squid Game style horrifying. There's a high narrow bridge and 2 giant dolls swinging a massive rope from both sides. The players have to cross the bridge while dodging the spinning rope. Miss the timing, trip up, you're done. And it's a solid setup. Tense, dangerous, visually interesting. There's even a POV shot when Gi-hun crosses, which really sells the moment. Someone might say the fancy camera work is just there to distract us from the fact that Gi-hun was obviously going to make it, and maybe they're right. But then comes the twist. After the hide and seek game, remember how the mother who killed her own son begged Gi-hun to take care of player 222 and her baby? Well, she hangs herself. She couldn't live with what she did. So now Gi-hun is carrying a literal baby on his chest across this nightmare bridge. And it works. The scene is surprisingly tense. Not just because of the rope, but because of how careful Gi-hun has to be for both their lives. Honestly, it's one of the most suspenseful sequences of the season. But then comes the heartbreak. Player 222, who already gave birth and twisted or broke her ankle during the last game, is still stuck on the other side. This is the worst possible game for someone with a leg injury. She can't jump. She can barely walk. And everyone else has already made it across. So, in a painful moment, she realizes the truth: she's not going to survive. But before she dies, she gives one final middle finger to player 333, Myeong-gi, telling him she doesn't need him. And she's right. The guy is trash. Then, with no options left and her baby now safely across with Gi-hun, she jumps. It's a sad, quiet, powerful death. Not as flashy as some of the others, but it hits. Because it's not just about her dying, it's about her making a choice. She gives up her life in the hope that her daughter will live. That somehow this child can escape the nightmare. And in a dark Squid Game twist, the VIPs, yeah, those morons are back, decide that the baby is officially a player now. Which means she's entitled to the prize money. And the other players? They are not happy about it. But whether they like it or not, the baby has officially taken her mother's place in the game. While I think the scene where the baby is forced to cross the bridge is good, after that it becomes a bit predictable. We all knew they were never going to kill the baby. Alright, let's talk about the last game. And let me just say, this one is messed up. The players are taken to the top of these massive, jagged rock formations. They start on a square, move to a triangle, and end on a circle. At each stage, they're told to push one person off the edge. Yep, that's the game. Push one person off. The rules say they can push as many people off the edge as they want. But in each stage, they have to push at least one. So who's left? Gi-hun, of course. Myeong-gi / number 333. We'll get to him. The baby, yep, still alive. Park Min-soo / number 125, who's spiraling after getting high on what I can only describe as Thanos' leftover pills. Im Jong-dae / number 100, an old man and the only side character here with an actual personality, and a bunch of randoms who somehow made it this far despite having the screen time of background plants. Let's be real, most of these remaining players don't matter. Except for player 100, who steps up as the de facto leader of this group that suddenly decides, hey, let's kill the baby so we don't have to split the money with her. Yeah. They're seriously talking about pushing a literal infant off a cliff to win. I'm not gonna lie, that scene was one of the most fucked up things I've seen in a TV show in a long time. But it was also so well written that I can't even be mad. You can tell this whole scenario was designed by someone who's asking, what happens when survival is everything? What happens when empathy dies? It's raw. It's horrifying. But it works. I do think it would have been better if they killed the baby. Let's talk about Min-soo real quick. His death was inevitable. But the way it happened, this guy went from a scared little puppy to a full-blown schizophrenic addict with wild eyes and a death wish. The pills he was hooked on, definitely not FDA approved. By the end, he's basically hallucinating and babbling, completely gone. And yet, somehow, he still seemed more human than the people who tried to kill a baby. And at least he died seeing someone he loved. I think he loved her. That's what this show does best. It doesn't just go for the gore or shock value, it rips into what makes us people. It shows how greed, fear, and desperation strip away empathy. How far people will go when they believe a better life is just one murder away. This final game wasn't about mechanics or twists. It was a mirror held up to humanity. And what it showed wasn't pretty. Okay, I've been putting this off long enough. Let's talk about the characters, starting with Gi-hun. And if you came into Season 3 expecting the defiant, determined rebel from Season 2, the one who swore to bring down the games, you're in for a shock. Because this Gi-hun, this is a broken man. After watching his closest friend be executed right in front of him, after watching countless people die because of a plan he made, Gi-hun's not fighting anymore. He's surviving barely. From the very beginning, the show makes a clear and deliberate choice. Gi-hun barely speaks this season. Most of his communication comes from his eyes. And honestly, It works. You feel every ounce of pain, guilt, and emotional numbness in just one look. This man is in hell and there's no escape. Let's break it down beat by beat. Remember when I mentioned he kills Dae-ho? Well, after that, he tries to drive a knife through his own neck. He sees no reason to go on. The guilt is too heavy, but the guards stop him. When he wakes up, he's handcuffed to a bedpost, probably to stop him from trying again. And that's when Jang Jeomja, aka Player 149, the mother who killed her own son, talks to him. This scene, devastating. She tells him it's not his fault, that the evil ones always get to walk away while the good people destroy themselves. Then she begs to take care of Player 222 and her baby. And when he wakes up the next morning, he finds she quietly hung herself. It breaks something in him, but at the same time, it gives him a reason to live. He now has a mission: protect the baby. After 222 dies, that mission becomes everything. Gi-hun has a heart of empathy I don't think I'll ever reach. And honestly, that's facts. Gi-hun is the rare kind of person who will walk through hell again and again, just to save someone else. Even after everything he's seen, everything he's lost, he's still trying. But the deeper the game goes, the more he sees the worst in humanity. The greed, the betrayal, the moral decay. And by the end, Gi-hun isn't the hopeful fighter anymore. He's someone who has lost all faith in the world. His final words are haunting. You can see it in his face. This man who once believed in justice, in change, in doing the right thing, now sees humanity as something beyond saving. Honestly, I would have loved if they explored that even further, if they really leaned into that despair and had him become the next front man. Not out of ambition, but out of pure, quiet disillusionment. Like, if this world is broken beyond repair, maybe I need to control the system just to protect what's left. That would have hit hard. Now about Gi-hun's final words. Yeah, that humans are line? It hit hard. But what's even more interesting is that he never actually finishes the sentence. And that's not by accident. Series creator Hwang Dong-hyuk explained in Squid Game, in conversation, that he originally planned for Gi-hun to say something like, "We are not horses. We are humans. And as humans, here's what we should do." But as he kept writing, he realized no single line could sum it all up. So instead, he let Gi-hun's actions do the talking. Because honestly, that's what the show's been building toward this whole time. Gi-hun has always been the guy who kept his humanity even when everything around him was pushing him to give it up. And in the end, instead of delivering a big, dramatic monologue, he just does the thing. He sacrifices himself for a baby, a literal new life. A fresh start. That silence? That pause after humans are. It says more than any speech ever could. It lets us fill in the blank. Even Lee Young-jae, the actor who plays Gi-hun, talked about how tough it was to nail that final moment. They filmed a bunch of different versions. Some where he cried, some where he held it in, and there was no right answer. That kind of open-ended storytelling gives the scene its power. And that's what makes it so gut-wrenching. Gi-hun never had real power through his words. Not in a system that never cared what he had to say. But his actions, that's where his strength was. He proved that even in a game built on cruelty, compassion still matters. And that changed everything, even the front man, all right. Let's talk about the man, the myth, the absolute psychopath, Lee Myeong-gi, played by Yim Si-won, who completely unleashed this season. And I'm gonna be real with you, I don't fully get this character. So let's try to break him down together. At the start of the season, Myeong-gi seems like he's got one goal: protect player 222 and her baby. During the hide-and-seek game, he even switches sides to become a seeker, saying he's willing to kill everyone just to protect them. Okay, intense, but maybe noble? He teams up with Nam-gyu and starts hunting down hiders. At first, he frames it like he's doing it for Junhui, player 222. But it becomes very clear very quickly this man just likes killing. He uses his protective instincts as a mask to justify violence. Then comes the rope-jumping game, and suddenly he's quiet. He doesn't speak much, just tries to talk Junhui into letting him help the baby across. You think maybe there's still some humanity left in him. Maybe this is a redemption arc? Hold that thought, because in the final game is where Myeong-gi fully transforms. At first, he seems like he's still on the baby's side. He pushes Minsu, player 125, off the rock, saving the child. You're thinking, wait, is he actually serious about being the father? But then round 2 hits, and this guy turns full sociopath. He manipulates number 100. The old man convinces him to separate Gi-hun from the baby and try to push him off. Gi-hun resists. So Myeong-gi comes up with another plan. Lure Gi-hun to the center of the rock, separate him from the baby, and get rid of him. When that doesn't work, he snaps. He kills nearly everyone in his group. No hesitation. No remorse. Just carnage. And then he claims the baby is his. That he's the father. And for a moment, you think this is it. Maybe this is his redemption arc. He'll protect the baby. Sacrifice himself. Atone. Nope. He threatens to throw the baby off a cliff. Unless Gi-hun dies. And that's when it all becomes clear. He doesn't care about the baby. He doesn't care about Junhui. He only cares about the money. And this is where Yim Si-won goes full beast mode. Be the moment he's off the leash, he is mean, scary, unpredictable, desperate, and cold as hell. It's one of those performances where the actor's face transforms. You see nothing of the gentle protector anymore. Just a monster dressed as a man. Honestly, Si-won goes so hard in those final scenes that it felt like he was gunning for an award. And if he doesn't get one, we riot. Let's rapid fire through some of these characters. Because honestly, not everyone deserves a deep dive. Nam-gyu? Snooze. He's clearly trying to be the next big bad like a Thanos-type enforcer, but let's be real. It doesn't land. T.O.P. from Season 2? That guy had chaotic menace, swagger, and an unhinged energy that made him watchable. Nam-gyu? He's just tall. No edge, no personality. He's like if a spreadsheet came to life. You forget he's in the scene even when he's literally killing people. Kang No-yul, the soldier? Look, on paper, she could have been fascinating. She's a literal ex-soldier who's now soldiering for the Squid Games. Full circle, right? But the writing gave her nothing to work with. A few action beats, one meaningful choice, saving a player, and that's it. Otherwise, she's like background noise with a gun. But hey, silver lining? At least she makes it out alive. In this show, that's basically a happily ever after. And honestly, Park Gyu-young gives the character way more than the script did. She brings a quiet intensity that almost makes you think the character has layers. Spoiler, she doesn't. But bless Park for trying. Hwang Jun-ho? Oh man. Poor guy. He's been stuck in the same storyline since Season 1. Season 2, Where's the Island? Season 3, No really, Where's the Island? It's like he's in his own spin-off where nothing ever happens. Honestly, at this point, I expected him to accidentally stumble onto Jeju Island and call it a day. A complete waste of Wai Ha-jun's talent. He deserves better than being stuck in the eternal side quest. And finally, drumroll, the VIPs are back. Yeah? No. Definitely not yay. They're still cartoon villains with the subtlety of a jackhammer. Every time they show up, the pacing drops, the cringe levels rise, and you start checking how much longer the episode has left. I get that they're supposed to be over the top, but there's a difference between satirical and Saturday morning cartoon. They drag every scene down like anchors in designer suits. The ideological clash between Gi-hun and the frontman is still alive even if the show delays their confrontation by keeping them physically apart early on. But once they're back on screen together, the tension sharpens. We even get a flash of how the frontman became the frontman. He was given a choice, kill the remaining players in his own game or die. He chose survival. That moment doesn't just explain his coldness, it exposes the rot in the system and what it takes to win. Still, his final decision is baffling. He hands Hwang Jun-ho the baby and the prize money. Why? Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's just random. But it's a strange note to end his arc on. Now let's talk about player 007 and his mother, player 149, Jang Gi-hun. That scene? Another level of devastating. She kills her own son, not out of malice, but because he was trying to kill player 222's baby. Let that sink in. Her child had become so warped by the game that she had to end his life to save a baby. It's one of the most disturbing, heart-wrenching moments in the entire season. And Gi-hun's mid-season monologue when she opens up to Gi-hun wrecked me. That scene was haunting. It was transcendent. Her dynamic with her son Young-sik unexpectedly became one of the emotional cores of the whole show. Fine, let's talk about the finale. I genuinely thought this season would finally wrap it up. Like, game over. System destroyed. Junho's endless Where's Waldo Island Edition investigation finally paying off. But no, instead of shutting it all down, they pack up the whole nightmare and send it straight to America. That's right. Squid Game, US Edition. Because apparently what this franchise really needed was more guns, more junkies, and less subtlety. Seriously, what are we doing here? Are we about to watch Player 001, Florida man try to win money to pay off his crypto debts while being hunted by a dude in a MAGA hat? If the show really wanted to capture American dystopia, they could have just filmed inside a Walmart on Black Friday. You mean to tell me after everything, we're doing Squid Game, American Edition now? With what frat boys, Florida retirees, and people who think healthcare is a conspiracy? And the tone whiplash? Incredible. 1 minute we're watching the literal soul of the show, Gi-hun, die saving a baby, and the next minute it's sunshine, healing montages, and some rando smiling because his daughter is suddenly cured. What? Did I accidentally switch over to a Hallmark drama halfway through? Gi-hun's death deserved an entire episode of silence and reflection. Instead, it gets swept under the rug like it was just another Tuesday. This man carried the series. His pain, his defiance, his humanity gone, and the show barely lets us feel it. He dies, and Netflix basically queues up a feel-good playlist and starts rolling the credits like, okay, who's ready for the US spin-off? And I'll say it now, loudly, for the people in the back, the VIPs talk like failed Disney villains. Why do they sound like they just got rejected from Zootopia for being too camp? Every time they speak, it's like bad improv night at a yacht club. They're less elite puppet masters of a death cult and more overacted community theater rejects who just discovered BDSM. Now let's talk answers or the absolute lack thereof. What did we learn this season? Anything new about how the games are funded? Nope. What the endgame really is? Nada. How any of this connects to actual stakes outside the murder arena? Crickets. The whole show turned into a flashy Rorschach test, lots of dramatic shadows, but no meaning. And then, the ending. The final insult. We watched the frontman hand off Gi-hun's stuff to his daughter, a moment that should be profound, maybe even hint at some generational shift. Instead? Nope. Cue subway scene. Random guy in New York or wherever playing the flipping card game like none of this ever happened. Just back to business as usual. A literal cycle of trauma, greed, and murder reset. As if 3 seasons of emotional devastation were just a trailer for the US reboot. This ending wasn't just bad. It was offensive. It spit on its own themes. It felt like Netflix went, oh, people really like this show, let's use the finale as a pitch deck for the next spin-off. And yeah, I'll say it again, the American remake setup is a crime against storytelling. This show was supposed to be about exposing the rot in society, about how we dehumanize each other in the name of survival. And now? Now it's just IP to be franchised. Congratulations, Netflix. You took a sharp, gut-wrenching masterpiece and turned it into Squid Game, Extended Universe. Fuck this ending. And that's it. A season that gave us some of the darkest, most gut-wrenching moments in the series and also some of the most frustrating. It asked hard questions about humanity, sacrifice, and greed, but left us with too few answers and an ending that feels more like a setup than a conclusion. Gi-hun's journey deserved better. We, the audience, deserve better. But here we are. Whether this show has peaked or is just getting started again, that remains to be seen. Thanks for watching. If you felt anything, anger, sadness, confusion, maybe even hope, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you want more honest takes on your favorite K-dramas, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sharp and don't flip the card.